The Galactic Assembly. The Great Hall of the Galactic Assembly gleamed with the lights of 1,000 star systems. Representatives from across known space gathered, their alien forms a kaleidoscope of life and civilization. Yet an uneasy energy pulsed beneath the pomp and formality. For today, a new species was taking its place among the stars: humanity. Deathworlders, the whispers echoed through the hall, tinged with fear and morbid fascination. Barely tamed savages. What were they thinking, letting them join? Zaxxon, the Agrixian delegate, surveyed the chamber, his antennae twitching with distaste. Like many, he questioned the wisdom of admitting these volatile creatures into their peaceful consortium. Deathworlds were named such for good reason. Their hostile environments bred species accustomed to constant danger and conflict. And if the reports were accurate, Earth was among the deadliest of them all. As if on cue, the human delegation entered, their footfalls heavy and purposeful against the gleaming floor. They appeared so physically robust compared to most races present, with dense musculature and hardy frames hinting at their world's brutal gravity. Zaxxon couldn't suppress a shudder. The centerpiece of the human group, Ambassador Evelyn Stark, took her place at the podium, dark eyes scanning the assembly. Her gaze held a piercing intensity that seemed to see through the very essence of those it landed upon. Esteemed members of the Galactic Assembly, she began, her voice a rich alto that filled the grand chamber. On behalf of Earth and all humanity, I thank you for this extraordinary opportunity. As the ambassador spoke, touting humanity's achievements and aspirations, Zaxxon leaned towards his neighbor, the Kryluxian representative Zuller. Pretty words, he murmured. But can we really trust them? I've heard such disturbing tales of their behavior, the things they consider recreational. Ziller flicked a tentacle uneasily. Indeed, but the assembly chose to accept their petition. Perhaps we should seek to understand our new members before casting judgment. Assumptions are the foundation of ignorance, after all. Zaxxon clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. Much as he loathed to admit it, his colleague had a point. The Galactic Assembly represented myriad civilizations, each with their own peculiarities. It would be hypocrisy to spurn humanity for its differences without further investigation. Sage advice, my friend, Zaxxon conceded reluctantly. I propose an excursion to Earth itself. Let us witness these Deathworlders in their natural habitat and unravel the truth behind the rumors. Only then can we truly gauge the character of our new comrades. Ziller signaled his agreement with a ripple of chromatophores. As the human ambassador concluded her address to polite applause, the seeds of the observer mission were already being sown. Zaxxon settled back in his seat, still battling unease beneath his exoskeleton. The coming days would prove crucial in humanity's future, as well as that of the assembly itself. For better or worse, the path forward was set. The Deathworlders had entered the stage. The horror movie marathon. Zaxxon shifted uncomfortably on the plush human couch, his exoskeleton ill-suited to the yielding cushions. Around him, the other members of the observer delegation. Xylar, Traal of Veruna Prime, and Quarks of the Sidari Namacy, looked equally out of place in the cozy human dwelling. Their host, a friendly but boisterous human named Zack, bustled about the living room, distributing bowls of a strange puffy foodstuff he called popcorn. You guys are in for a treat, Zack proclaimed, his grin stretching across his flat, angular face. I've cooed up some of Earth's finest horror films for our little movie marathon. You're about to see a side of humanity you won't soon forget. Zaxxon accepted his bowl gingerly, eyeing the oily kernels with suspicion. He had assumed this cultural exchange would involve more dignified pursuits. But Zack had insisted that experiencing human entertainment was key to understanding their psyche. As the lights dimmed and the first movie began, Zaxxon braced himself for tedium. How shocking could these primitive visual narratives really be? He soon learned the answer. The films were a relentless onslaught of gore, violence, and terror. Monstrous entities stalked and butchered hapless humans in graphic detail. Psychological torments drove protagonists to the brink of madness. Jump scares sent the delegates twitching and chittering in distress. Yet what disturbed Zaxxon most wasn't the content itself, but the human reaction to it. Zack laughed uproariously at the most horrific scenes, even as his alien guests recoiled. He seemed to relish each splattering of blood, each agonized scream. During a particularly grisly sequence involving a chainsaw, Troll could take no more. The Vurunen leaped to his feet. Pale frills flared in horror. "How can you find amusement in such savagery?" Troll demanded, his melodic voice strangled with distress. "This wanton cruelty, this glorification of suffering, it's barbaric." Zack paused the film, turning to face the distraught alien with a puzzled expression. "Hey, easy there, buddy. It's just a movie. None of it's real. But why would you simulate such horrors for entertainment?" Xyler pressed, his tentacles knotted with tension. "What does this say about your species that you find pleasure in fear and pain?" Zack leaned back, running a hand through his short, spiky hair. "It's catharsis, you know. A way to confront our darkest fears in a safe environment. We're not reveling in real suffering. It's the thrill of being scared while knowing, deep down, that we're okay." It's a rush. The delegates exchanged uneasy glances, unease still thrumming through them. Zack's explanation made a certain abstract sense, but the visceral reality of human entertainment was hard to process. Was this truly the way of all humans? Did they really possess such a capacity for casual cruelty, even if only simulated? As if sensing their disquiet, Zack rose and stretched. "I think we need a change of pace. How about we visit somewhere that specializes in scares, but fun ones? Trust me, it'll give you a whole new perspective." Despite their reservations, the delegates found themselves acquiescing. They had come to understand humanity, unsettling as the endeavor was proving. The night was far from over, and the true depths of the Deathworlders' alien nature had only begun to reveal themselves. The haunted house experience. The facade of the haunted house loomed before the delegation, all crumbling stonework and eerie wrought iron filigree. Gnarled trees flanked the structure, their skeletal branches clawing at the night sky. Distant screams and ominous music drifted from within, setting the delegates' nerves on edge. Zack, by contrast, was positively vibrating with excitement. "This is gonna be epic," he proclaimed, rubbing his hands together in anticipation. "Shadowgate Manor is renowned for its immersive scares. You won't even know what's real and what's not." Zaxxon clicked his mandibles nervously, eyeing the foreboding edifice with trepidation. The concept of intentionally subjecting oneself to fear for amusement still seemed utterly alien to him, but he had committed to this mission of understanding. He would not shrink from it now. As they passed through the ticket booth and entered the haunted house proper, the atmosphere shifted palpably. The air grew thick and heavy, redolent with the scent of decay and ancient dust. Shadows pressed in from all sides, hiding untold horrors. Quarks, the normally unflappable Sidari, let out a high-pitched trill as a figure lunged from the darkness. A shambling corpse, its flesh hanging in tatters. Zack laughed good-naturedly, patting the quivering crystalline alien on the back. "Relax, it's just an actor in makeup," he assured them. Admittedly very good makeup. These guys are pros. But the reassurances fell flat as the delegation pressed deeper into Shadowgate Manor. Each room held new nightmares, ghostly apparitions, twisted monstrosities, gore-splattered crime scenes. The aliens found themselves huddling together, their primal fight-or-flight instincts screaming at them to flee these horrors. Even Xyler, usually the most restrained among them, was trembling visibly after a particularly vivid scene involving a horde of skittering, fang-mouthed alien parasites. It cut a little too close to home. Zaxxon's mind reeled as they stumbled through the attraction, barely processing Zack's occasional comments and laughter. How could humans willingly immerse themselves in such visceral fear? Did they truly feel terror as other species did, Or was this all merely an intellectual exercise for them? By the time they emerged into the cool night air, the delegation was shaken to its core. Truall leaned against a gnarled oak, his frills slick with stress sweat. Even Quarks's crystalline carapace had taken on a sickly, grayish hue. Zack, meanwhile, was grinning from ear to ear. "That was incredible," he exclaimed, seemingly oblivious to his companion's distress. "The way they used those holograms in the crystal cavern scene. Absolutely cutting-edge stuff." Zaxxon turned to the human, fighting to keep his voice steady. "Zack," he said slowly, "I must confess, I am more perplexed than ever. This deliberate self-exposure to fear, this recreational terror, it defies all reason. How can your species function, dwelling so readily on the darkest of possibilities?" Zack's grin faded, replaced by a more thoughtful expression. "I think I'm starting to get it," he said slowly. "For you guys, fear is just a warning system, right? A survival mechanism. But for us, it's more complicated." He gestured back towards the haunted house. "We know, intellectually, that none of that was real. It lets us confront our fears in a controlled way, to inoculate ourselves against the true horrors of the universe. And trust me," his eyes took on a distant cast, "humanity has seen some true horrors." The delegates exchanged glances, a new understanding dawning. Perhaps there was more to these Deathworlders than they had assumed. Perhaps, in their strange and unsettling way, they were more equipped to face the brutal realities of existence than any of them. Zaxxon signaled to his colleagues. Their mission was far from over, and it was becoming increasingly clear that the key to understanding humanity lay not in their laughter, but in the darkness that necessitated it. The true revelations were yet to come. Real dangers of Earth. The delegation sat in hushed silence as the images played across the screen. Grainy footage of humans battling against impossible odds, facing down terrors that defied belief. A group of sailors, mere motes against the vast expanse of a roiling sea, struggling to keep their fishing boat afloat amidst towering waves and hurricane-force winds. A lone hiker, dwarfed by the rugged mountain terrain, limping determinedly forward on a clearly broken leg, even as the oncoming dusk heralded the prowling of nocturnal predators. Firefighters charging into an inferno, the very air around them shimmering with blistering heat, to pull victims from the blaze despite the clear peril to their own lives. And in each scenario, despite the clear and present danger, the humans displaying a resolute calm. No histrionics, no paralysis in the face of fear, just grim determination and unwavering courage. Zack paused the playback, turning to face the delegation. His usually jovial face was solemn, his eyes holding a gravitas they had not seen before. "This," he said quietly, "is the reality of life on Earth. Our world, for all its beauty, is unforgiving. It's a place where danger can strike at any moment, from any quarter, where even the environment itself can turn against you." Truall leaned forward, his frills twitching thoughtfully. "And yet your people do not seem to live in fear of these dangers. If anything, they appear almost nonchalant in the face of them." Zack nodded. "We can't afford to live in constant fear. If we did, we'd never accomplish anything. Never explore, never innovate, never push the boundaries. And probably just my opinion, but that refusal to be paralyzed by fear. It's been key to our survival and growth as a species." Zilar waved a tentacle. "But surely, such nonchalance towards danger is reckless. It invites unnecessary risk, does it not?" "I think it's more about managed risk," Zack explained. "We don't charge blindly into danger. Well, most of us don't. But we accept that risk is a part of life. That to achieve anything worthwhile, we have to be willing to face our fears head-on." He tapped a command into the console, bringing up a new set of images. Spacecraft launching into the void. Deep-sea submersibles descending into the abyss. Pioneers setting out across untamed wilderness. This is the flip side of that coin. The same courage that lets us weather life's storms also drives us to reach for the stars, to push the envelope, to test our limits, to boldly go, if you'll forgive the cliche. The delegates sat back, absorbing this new perspective. It was becoming increasingly clear that their initial assessment of humanity had been woefully one-dimensional. These Deathworlders were not merely reckless thrill-seekers or callous brutes. They were survivors, innovators, explorers. Their relationship with fear was not one of avoidance or submission, but of balance and mastery. They had learned to harness their primal terrors, to transmute them into the fuel for their achievements. It was a revelation that left the delegates both humbled and awed, and, if they were honest, more than a little envious. Orcs spoke up, his crystalline voice chiming thoughtfully. Your species' approach to fear is alien to us, but I am beginning to see its merits. Perhaps there is wisdom in confronting one's demons, rather than merely hiding from them. Zack smiled, the solemnity lifting from his features. That's the idea, yeah. We're not fearless. Far from it. But we've learned that fear is just another obstacle to overcome. Another challenge to face. He stood, stretching his arms overhead. Anyway, I think that's enough heavy philosophy for one day. How about we switch gears? I've got some classic comedy queued up that I think you guys will love. As the delegation settled in for a change of pace, their thoughts lingered on the insights they had gained. Humanity, they now realized, was a complex tapestry, one in which the threads of fear and courage, danger and determination, were inextricably interwoven. They had come seeking to understand, but they had found something far more valuable, a new perspective on the very nature of existence, and perhaps the stirrings of a new respect for the Deathworlders they had once dismissed, empathy and understanding. In the days following their intensive immersion in human culture, the delegation found themselves divided. Late into the night cycle, they gathered in Zaxxon's quarters aboard the observation ship, debating the implications of what they had witnessed. Trawl paced the room, his frills rippling with agitation. I confess, my perspective on these humans has shifted dramatically. Their approach to fear, to adversity, it is unorthodox, yes, but there is a certain resilience to it, a strength of spirit that I find admirable. Orcs nodded, his crystalline form refracting the soft light of the room. I too have found myself reappraising our initial judgments. The human's capacity for courage, for pushing beyond their limitations, it is a trait that could serve the Galactic Assembly well. But Zaxxon remained unconvinced, his mandibles clicking in frustration. I hear your arguments, my friends, but I cannot shake the unease I feel. These Deathworlders, for all their admirable qualities, remain volatile, unpredictable. Can we truly trust a species that thrives on chaos and conflict? Zealer, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. Is it truly chaos and conflict they thrive on, or is it challenge and growth? I think we do them a disservice to assume the former. The Kryluxian's words hung in the air, heavy with implication. The delegates fell silent, each grappling with the fundamental question at hand. Were the humans allies to be embraced, or a wild card to be contained? Trawl broke the silence, his voice soft but urgent. We cannot let fear guide our decisions. If we spurn the humans out of misunderstanding and prejudice, we risk sowing the seeds of future strife. Surely the path of wisdom is to extend the hand of friendship, to foster mutual understanding and growth. Zaxxon's exoskeleton rippled with discomfort. As much as he hated to admit it, Trawl had a point. The Galactic Assembly had maintained peace for eons by fostering cooperation and dialogue, not by isolating and ostracizing those who were different. Perhaps you are right, the Agrixian conceded reluctantly. But I maintain that caution is warranted. We should continue to observe and engage with the humans, yes, but we must also be prepared for the possibility that their nature may prove incompatible with our ways. The others murmured their assent, the compromise position striking a chord. They would give the humans a chance, would strive to understand and empathize with their alien perspective, but they would not lower their guard entirely. As the meeting adjourned and the delegates dispersed to their quarters, a palpable tension hung in the air. The question of humanity's place in the cosmos remained unresolved, and the stakes of that question had never felt higher. In his private quarters, Zaxxon stared out at the blue-green orb of Earth, spinning serenely below. The death world that had spawned these perplexing, paradoxical creatures. What secrets did it still hold? What unforeseen challenges might yet emerge from its turbulent depths? Only time would tell, and the delegates, for all their wisdom and experience, could only watch and wait. The future of the Galactic Assembly, and perhaps of all sentient life, hung in the balance. The observation mission had opened their eyes and minds. But the true test, Zaxxon suspected, was still to come. And when it did, the mettle of both human and alien would be put to the ultimate trial. The Deathworlders had changed the game. Now, it remained to be seen how it would play out. An unprecedented alliance. The alert klaxon shattered the contemplative silence of the observation ship, jolting the delegates from their ruminations. Zaxxon rushed to the bridge, his heart pounding in time with the pulsing alarms. On the view screen, a scene of chaos unfolded. A massive, unfamiliar vessel hung in space, its form a twisted mass of jagged metal and pulsing, sickly light. Smaller ships swarmed around it like angry insects, engaging in vicious skirmishes with the vessels of the Galactic Assembly. Unknown aggressor. Trawl reported, his normally melodic voice strained with urgency. They appeared out of nowhere, no warning. Our ships are barely holding the line. Zaxxon stared at the nightmare vision, his mind racing. In all the years of the Assembly's reign, no force had dared to launch such a brazen assault. Who were these attackers, and what did they want? But there was no time for idle speculation. The Assembly fleet was clearly outmatched, the enemy's superior firepower and numbers taking a devastating toll. If something wasn't done quickly, the heart of galactic civilization could fall in a matter of hours. Ziller's voice cut through the chaos, urgent and clear. We need to call for reinforcements. Rally every available ship from across the Assembly worlds. But even as the orders were relayed, a sinking realization settled over the bridge. Help would come, but it would take time. Time they may not have. And then, a flicker of movement on the screen. A new set of vessels, sleek and silver, darting towards the fray with impossible speed and agility. Human ships. Zaxxon watched in disbelief as the Earth fleet engaged the enemy, their tactics a dizzying display of daring and improvisation. They wove between the larger vessels, drawing fire and disrupting formations. Impossibly, inexplicably, they seemed to be turning the tide. I don't believe it, Quarks murmured, his crystalline facets pulsing with astonishment. They're actually pushing them back. And it was true. The combination of human audacity and Assembly firepower was proving too much for the attackers. One by one, the enemy ships fell, exploding into showers of debris and flickering light. In a matter of hours, it was over. The Galactic Assembly had emerged victorious, but only by the narrowest of margins, and only with the help of the Deathworlders they had once feared and doubted. In the aftermath, as the battered fleets regrouped and tended to their wounded, a new respect blossomed. Humans and aliens alike marveled at what they had achieved together, at the unexpected bonds of camaraderie forged in the crucible of battle. Zaxxon found Zack aboard one of the human ships, the young man's face smudged with grease and sweat. The Igrixian extended a claw, grasping the human's hand in a gesture he had learned was one of friendship. I must admit, Zaxxon said, his voice thick with emotion, I had my doubts about your species, about your readiness to stand with us as equals. But today, you have proven yourselves true allies, true friends. Zack grinned, his teeth flashing white in his grimy face. Hey, that's what friends are for, right? To have each other's backs when the chips are down. The human's casual demeanor belied the profound truth of his words. In facing this threat together, humans and aliens had forged a bond stronger than any treaty or agreement. They had learned to trust each other, and in doing so, had perhaps laid the groundwork for a new era of galactic cooperation. But as the delegates celebrated and the assembly began the long process of rebuilding, a niggling doubt remained. The attackers had struck without warning, their motives and origins a mystery. What other threats might lurk in the depths of the cosmos, waiting for their moment to strike? Only one thing was certain. Whatever challenges lay ahead, the Galactic Assembly would face them united. Humans and aliens, Deathworlders and Peacekeepers, standing together against the darkness. The future was uncertain. But with this new alliance at its heart, the Assembly would meet it head-on, ready for whatever terrors and triumphs it might bring.